"Dad, sign it. The house is already sold." My son said that, right at the dining table where my wife's bowl of rice was still sitting from the funeral last week. My daughter-in-law, Madison, slid a stack of glossy printed papers toward me with 2 fingers, like she was pushing a bill toward a delinquent customer. "Dad, living alone is too dangerous for you. We'll arrange for you to move into our basement. It's safer there, and cheaper." I stared at them without blinking. Not because I was shocked, but because, in that moment, I realized they no longer saw me. They saw an asset waiting to be transferred. I didn't sign. I simply put the pen down, stood up, pretended my hands were trembling like a frail old man, but quietly locked my office door behind me. Because that night, when I opened the envelope Gloria, my wife, left behind, I found something that could flip this entire board upside down, a secret that, if they knew, they would be the ones begging me. If you're still here, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Every comment helps this story reach more hearts, and if it moved you, give it a like so others can find it too. My name is Ira Coleman, 73 years old, African American, who has spent nearly an entire lifetime in Atlanta. This house, the weathered roof tiles, the porch that creaks every time it rains, is everything Gloria and I scraped together our whole lives to build. We bought it at a time when banks still looked for any excuse to deny loans to black families. Gloria used to say, "Ira, this house isn't just shelter. It's proof that we stood tall in a world that tried to break our backs. And now, before the house has even cooled from the warmth of the woman who died in it, my own children have already priced it like a weekend auction item." That morning, sunlight cut through the striped curtains Gloria sewed by hand. I had just washed my teacup when I heard keys rattling. Before I could turn around, the door burst open and Derek, my son, walked in like it was his house. Behind him was Madison, heels tapping sharply on the wooden floor, eyes cold as glass. No one asked if I had time. No one asked if I'd eaten. No one asked whether my heart was still hurting for Gloria. They came with a purpose, and that purpose wasn't me. Madison laid the papers on the table. Glossy prints, charts, tiny letters. The title reading, "Asset Optimization Plan and Elder Care Strategy." Sounded fancy, like something out of Harvard Business School. But I knew instantly. They wanted to sell my house. Madison spoke in a voice sweet like artificial syrup. "Dad, we ran a full cost analysis. Living alone is expensive. An elderly African American man living independently. The data shows higher than average risk." I let out a bitter laugh. Not once in her life had she cared that I was black, until she needed to use it as leverage to make me sign. Derek sat across from me, patting my hand as if soothing a child. "Dad, we renovated the basement. You'll have your own room, your own bed, even a mini fridge. You won't have to worry about anything. Just sign." The basement. I used to store Christmas decorations down there. I kept an old dog crate down there. Now I was supposed to sleep beside all the things they threw down? The doorbell rang. My daughter, Renee, walked in still in her nurse scrubs, sweat stains visible after a long shift. She kissed my cheek and sat beside me, eyes full of conflict. "Dad, we just want you to be safe." When Renee said that, my heart softened a little, but then I looked from her honest face to Madison's sharp eyes, and everything became clearer. Madison flipped through the packet, talking like she was selling an all-inclusive vacation package. "Here is the projected profit from selling the house, $385,000. Here are the cleaning fees, the real estate fees, taxes. This is the expected cost of moving you into our place." "The basement," I said quietly. She smiled. "It's not a basement, Dad. It's a living suite. That's the term the Home Depot sales team uses." I looked at Gloria's photo sitting on the shelf. She had been gone less than 10 days, and they were already calculating her home like people price out stocks. I asked Derek, "Do you think I'm mentally competent?" He paused, then spoke slowly, like addressing someone who'd lost their mind. "Dad, just sign it. You can't stay here alone anymore." No sentence in my life had ever cut deeper, because it wasn't concern, it was a declaration of power. I stood up. "I need to think." Madison flinched. "Dad, the longer you wait, the greater the risk." I stared straight into her eyes. "Risk for who?" No one answered. Renee lowered her head. Derek swallowed hard. I saw it all, the greed, the calculations, and the coldness Gloria had warned me about. They left the house with final lines that sounded like soft threats. "Dad, don't make this harder than it needs to be. We just want what's best. You're getting older. You have to accept it. Just sign and it's done." The door slammed shut. The house grew so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. Slowly, I walked into Gloria's office, the room I hadn't stepped into in nearly 10 years. When my hand touched the doorknob, my palm trembled. Not from age, but because I could feel her presence inside. The room still smelled like her. Lavender, old paper, the ink of letters she hand-wrote me every birthday. Under the warm yellow lamp sat the wooden desk with the drawer she once told me, "When the time is right, you'll know what it's for." I opened the drawer. A cream envelope lay perfectly centered, as if it had been waiting. My name was written in her familiar round script, "Ira. When the time comes, open this." I sat down and opened it. Inside was a thick red folder, heavy, weighty. A small note was stuck to the cover. "If they treat you like an asset, use this." I opened to the first page. A name appeared at the top line, bright as light in darkness. Valencia, Spain. My breath caught. I turned the next page, then the next, and the more I read, the more I realized Gloria had prepared for this moment long before it arrived. And in that moment I understood. The battle my children thought they were winning was only just beginning. Because I had Gloria standing behind me even from beneath the ground. I sank into the wooden chair Gloria used when she kept our family ledger. The chair creaked softly, familiar enough to make my skin prickle, as if she had just stood up to make tea. The last light of day filtered through the window, laying a warm gold strip across the desk. In my hands was her letter, resting on top of the documents in the red folder. Her handwriting curved gently, steady and deliberate, like the last breaths of someone who still had something important to say. "Ira, if you're reading this, then what you and I feared has already begun." I paused. The faint lavender pattern on the paper seemed to rise from memory itself. I swallowed and kept reading. Gloria wrote that in recent years she had overheard Derek and Madison talking about home value, optimizing assets, and planning for the next generation. Not the words of children, but of investors. They rarely asked if her knees still swelled every morning. They asked, "How many more years before you two downsize?" Or, "If you sell early, the profit margin is much better." With those sharp eyes that once made me both love her and fear her, Gloria had seen everything from the start. In the letter, she revealed she had quietly paid off the entire mortgage nearly 6 years ago. "Do you remember when I said we needed to save more?" she wrote. "The truth is, I used my extra work hours to pay down the house. I didn't want the kids to know. I didn't want them to think this home was a place to pull equity from. I could almost hear her voice in the room, slightly husky with age, but still warm and steady. I set the letter down and leaned back. My chest tightened not from grief, but from the ache of being protected too many times without knowing it. I picked up the next papers. A property ownership certificate slid into my hand, a logo from an international land registry. Spanish words printed crisply. Propiedad, Casa Rural, Valencia, España. Owner, Gloria May Coleman. Date purchased, 8 years ago. 8 years. For 8 years, the woman I slept beside had hidden a house in another country, not to betray me, but to shield me from the children we raised. Beneath that certificate was a letter from a law firm in Valencia. All documents, taxes, and deed information were secured and maintained annually. The house had been inspected, repairs kept up, everything paid in full. Then I read Gloria's handwritten note. If they start talking about the basement, or a nursing home, or anything that makes you feel like you're being placed under guardianship, call this woman, Carmen Alvarez. I trust her like I trust myself. That name pulled old memories back, the scent of the bean and rice dish Carmen once brought to thank us still lingering faintly. More than 20 years ago, when Gloria volunteered at the community center, Carmen's family faced deportation. Her husband was detained. Their papers were a mess. Their old lawyer had scammed them. Gloria, a retired elementary school teacher, fought like a warrior. She translated documents, found a real attorney, wrote letters, sat in hearings. Their family stayed in the country. Their children went to college. Now I understood. Carmen didn't just owe gratitude. She owed Gloria a lifetime of honor. Gloria continued, "You don't know this, Ira." Carmen cried when I told her I feared the kids saw us as assets. She said if the day ever came when you needed a place to stand without being controlled, the house in Valencia would always have a light on. She keeps the keys, tends the garden, cleans the bedroom. And she promised, with everything we once did for her family, that you will always have a safe place outside America. I placed a hand over my chest. My heart thumped so hard it felt like it wanted to run straight to Gloria. The last pages held her final instructions. This isn't just a backup property, Ira. This is an exit route. If one day they no longer see you as a father, but as a wallet, go. Don't let them lock you in a basement. If you must, leave them before they leave you. I lingered on the last sentence. The word leave, she wrote small but unmistakably clear. I opened the other drawer. Inside was a small silver USB, a leather notebook, and a photo of Gloria beside a tanned woman with dark hair. Carmen standing in front of a small white house with a red tile roof, blue shutters, and a bursting bougainvillea vine. Valencia, a place I had never been, but Gloria had. She had photos, documents, a promise from someone who owed us everything. Suddenly the room felt warmer. Or maybe it was my heart. I closed the letter, held it to my chest, and shut my eyes for a few seconds. In the silence, I heard Gloria's voice drift through the curtains. Ira, protecting yourself isn't selfish. It's survival. When I opened my eyes, I knew my life had just changed direction, not because my children pushed me to a corner, but because Gloria had opened another road long ago. A road with sunlight, with ocean, with freedom, and with a promise waiting for me across the sea. The next morning arrived slowly, as if the sun hesitated before entering the home, missing the woman who kept its rhythm for 30 years. I woke earlier than usual. The morning chill slipped through the doorframe and brushed my hands as I turned on the kitchen light. I made coffee with the machine. Gloria bought me for my 60th birthday. She always joked that a black man should never drink bad coffee or lose faith in himself. Steam rose from the cup, carrying memories with it. Through the window I saw the small garden beside the porch, the lavender bushes, the tomato plants, the trellis she built with hands that once stitched every button on my shirts. Everything looked as if she had watered it yesterday. I rested my palm on the windowsill. The first rays of light hit the leaves, making them glow like a quiet reminder that Gloria was still here. But I couldn't stand there forever. There was a phone number in the letter. A path Gloria left for me. And I needed to know where it led. I took my phone, inhaled deeply, and dialed the international number. The ring sounded long and slow enough to make the heart of a 73-year-old man stutter. I nearly hung up just as someone on the other side picked up. A warm, steady voice with a Spanish accent answered. Hola? ¿Quién es? I hesitated. This is Ira Coleman, Gloria's husband. Silence. Then a soft rush of breath, like a warm wind crossing the ocean. Senor Coleman, dear God, I knew there would be a day you called. Gloria told me so. Hearing Gloria's name spoken with such familiarity by a stranger made my chest tighten. Are you Carmen Alvarez? Yes, she said, her voice breaking into a smile. Gloria was a blessing to my family. In fact, if you ask the right people in Valencia, everyone knows her. I went still. I never knew Gloria had left such a mark across an ocean. Carmen continued, slow and steady. 20 years ago, we were about to be removed from the United States. Our old lawyer stole our money. My husband was detained. I will never forget the day Gloria walked into the community center, holding my messy, handwritten papers and said, "We're not losing another family today." She went with us to every meeting, wrote letters to the court, found a real attorney. She paid part of the legal fees without ever asking for anything back. Gloria saved us. Carmen paused, then added, because of her, we stayed. My daughter is now a cardiologist. My son is a history teacher. They always speak about the black woman named Gloria in Atlanta who saved their lives. My lip trembled. I was learning who my wife truly was only after she was gone. Carmen continued, when Gloria discovered her illness, she came to Valencia 3 times. The first time was just to rest. But the second time, she told me she needed a place where you could be free if what she feared came true. A chill ran down my spine. What she feared? Carmen didn't soften the truth. She said, if I die first, there will be people with our blood who will try to control him. I shut my eyes. The family meeting, Derek's voice, Madison's cold stare. Everything snapped into place. Gloria chose a small casita near the sea, quiet, full of sunlight, Carmen continued. She asked me to take care of it. I changed the sheets every month, checked the pipes, pay the taxes, keep a spare key. She left instructions that the home belonged only to you, only you. I steadied myself on the table. She said, only me. What does that mean? Gloria requested that I never speak to your children. She called them wolves. Wolves wearing family clothing. My stomach twisted. Gloria saw the future before any of us did. She prepared an escape not for running, but for surviving. Carmen added softly, Senor Coleman, the house is ready. Always ready. Whether you want to come for a week, a month, or forever, it is your home. Gloria told me to make sure you could walk through the door and feel protected. I don't know how long I sat in silence. My chest felt heavy and light at the same time. It felt like Gloria placing her hand on my shoulder, whispering, You are not alone, Carmen asked gently. Are you all right? I took a long breath. I don't know. I just lost my wife. And I just learned she built an entire life for me without telling me. Gloria knew you'd resist if she told you, Carmen replied. She said, Ira is a good man. He'll choose to suffer rather than make anyone sad, and she wanted you to have a choice. A healthy choice. The conversation went on for a few more minutes, mostly Carmen confirming what I had seen in the documents: lawyers, paperwork, taxes, keys. Everything was correct. Everything had been prepared. When I hung up, the house became as silent as a lake before a storm. I looked around the wall where Gloria hung our family photos, the old rocking chair, the worn rug she always wanted to replace but never got to. All of it now felt like it was waiting for my decision. I stood by the window and looked out at Gloria's garden again. I knew I was standing at a crossroads. On one side were Derek and Madison, their asset management plans, those eyes that saw me as a burden. On the other side was the path Gloria had left behind, a little house by the Mediterranean Sea, a woman who owed our family her life, and a future where I wouldn't be placed under guardianship by my own children. I understood more clearly than ever. If I didn't stand up to protect the rest of my life, the people I loved most would be the first to erase it. And maybe it was time to choose the path Gloria had already drawn. I stood at the window for a long time after the call with Carmen. The sun was already high, lighting up the kitchen where Gloria used to sit, peeling peaches for me with quiet patience. But inside me was a heavy gray cloud. I couldn't just leave yet. Even if my heart wanted to walk away from Atlanta, my mind knew I still had a duty to lock the door behind me. If I disappeared now, what would Derek and Madison do? Put the house up for sale? File for guardianship? Force me into a nursing facility? I couldn't give them that opening. I walked into the office and opened the bottom drawer, where Gloria kept her most important things. The business card of attorney Marcus Blake lay right there, cream-colored, small, sharp lettering, the edges slightly curled from age. Gloria once said, "Marcus is the only man in this city I'd trust with our family paperwork." I held the card for a moment, almost expecting to hear Gloria's voice whisper advice from the walls. Marcus's office sat in a red brick building in Midtown, right on the corner where the streetcar rumbled past every 10 minutes. When I stepped inside, the receptionist recognized my name the moment I handed over the card. "Mr. Coleman? Mrs. Gloria came here twice. Please, Attorney Blake is expecting you." Marcus rose when I entered, a black man in his early 50s, neatly trimmed salt and pepper hair, and eyes sharp in that way people have when they're used to seeing the truth without decoration. "Mr. Coleman, I only wish we were meeting under better circumstances." I set the red folder on his desk. "I think Gloria wanted me to come see you long ago." Marcus opened the file. In less than 5 minutes, he looked up at me with the expression of someone who'd just been handed exactly the tool he knew he'd need. "You know, Mr. Coleman, Gloria prepared things better than almost anyone I've ever met. The house was transferred into your name 3 years ago. No debt, no lien. And the deed was notarized and filed with every safeguard imaginable." I nodded. He continued, "Which means Derek and Madison have no legal claim to the property. Not even a fraction." I exhaled, relieved, but Marcus lifted a finger. "But," he said firmly, "they can still attempt to file for guardianship if they claim you're incapable of managing your own assets." My grip tightened on the chair. "Just say it, Marcus. Because I'm old? Or because I'm a black man?" Marcus leaned back, voice steady and honest. Both. I've seen it many times. Successful black children often assume they're aging. Parents aren't competent, especially when those parents don't hand over financial control. The discrimination isn't just outside, it lives inside families too. Heat climbed up my spine, anger, shame, hurt, all blending into one quiet, roaring wave. "What do I have to do?" I asked. Marcus opened his notebook. "First, I'll send legal notices to every real estate office in the region, warning them not to accept any sale request involving your property without your direct authorization. It's called a preemptive legal block." I nodded. "Next," he said, "you'll need a cognitive and mental health evaluation. Don't worry, it's routine. A specialist will certify that you're fully competent. With that document, any guardianship petition from your children will be denied immediately." Hearing that made guilt settle deep into my chest. I whispered, "I never thought I'd live long enough to prove I'm sane, just to stop my own children from controlling me." Marcus looked at me with the kind of understanding only a black man of a certain age could offer. "You're not the first, Mr. Coleman, and you won't be the last. But you are one of the few who get to prepare." Gloria made sure of that. I leaned back, my eyes drifting to the window where the sky was a bright, unbothered blue. A sliver of my pride had been cut open, sharp as paper. I could almost feel Gloria's hand on my shoulder saying, "Ira, stand up. You're not as small as they think." Marcus reviewed the remaining documents and handed me a sheet. "Start writing everything down. Who calls, what they say, what they imply, any threats. Use dates and times. If this turns ugly, these will be your receipts." I looked at the list, not thin, but heavy. I'd spent my life writing addresses on envelopes. I never imagined I'd be writing down the words of my own son the way people document harassment. When I reached the parking lot, I stood beside my old car and placed my hand on the hood. I didn't look at the sky anymore. I looked forward down the long stretch of Peachtree Street where cars rolled by, unaware that the life of a 73-year-old man had just shifted. Back home, I opened a new notebook and wrote the first line in my own handwriting. "Today begins." I replayed the family meeting in my mind. Derek's tone, Madison's smugness, Renee's tired eyes. I wrote everything. No additions, no omissions, every phrase, every look. Every time they dodged the word sell and replaced it with optimize assets. Gloria once taught me, after she'd been denied a home loan, "Ira, paper, and ink are what make people shut up." That night, alone in a dark house, I saw two roads stretch out ahead. One led to court where I could fight and win by law. The other led to Spain where I could simply live without fear of anyone controlling my freedom. Strangely, both roads had been drawn by Gloria, and I knew sooner or later I'd have to choose one. If you're still listening to this story, and your heart aches at the thought of a father having to prove he's still competent just to keep his own children from stripping away his life, then tell me where you're watching from, down in the comments, or leave even the smallest thought so I know we're walking through this together. That afternoon the sky turned gray, as if Atlanta itself sensed something was about to happen inside this small house. I was at the kitchen table, jotting down a few lines in the notebook Marcus gave me, when I heard a car screech to a stop outside. I didn't have to look. Grief leaves a long silence, but greed always returns fast. Derek was first through the door, face stretched into a strained version of concern, but his eyes cold and impatient. Madison followed, her expensive perfume sweeping past me like the air inside a department store, beautiful, but utterly devoid of warmth. The last person to walk in made my chest tighten. A young lawyer, shiny-faced, red tie, file folder tucked under his arm like a loaded weapon. "Dad, we came to clear up a misunderstanding," Derek said, dragging the last word like he was the injured party. "We don't want tension, especially after Mom just passed." Madison stepped forward, hand to her chest like a small-town theater actress. "We already prepared the basement for you. New bed, security cameras, anti-slip rugs. We even bought a heater. Those costs." "What costs?" I asked. She listed a long, ridiculous inventory as if reading a hotel bill. Their lawyer nodded along. "Dad, living alone is expensive," Derek added. "We're carrying a big load for you." "Carrying?" I almost laughed. They hadn't spent a single dollar on me. They were carrying me with their imagination. I stood up slowly. "All right, let's talk in the kitchen. We're family after all." They exchanged a satisfied glance, thinking they'd won. I led them to the kitchen, Gloria's domain. On the table sat a worn tablecloth, a vase of leftover funeral flowers, and my phone. I set it down, angled slightly, and my thumb slid over the screen to start recording. The red light blinked bright. Madison noticed, but probably thought I didn't understand technology. Derek didn't notice at all. Their lawyer was too busy sizing up my kitchen like he was appraising it. The young lawyer began, voice light but sharp as a razor hidden in cotton. "Mr. Coleman, after a major loss, cognitive abilities can decline. The law provides protections for seniors during vulnerable periods. If you sign this power of attorney, your son and daughter-in-law can make financial decisions for you." I sniffed. "I'm old and my ears aren't great. What was that about decline?" He repeated it, slower, clearer. "And if I don't sign?" I asked. Madison shrugged, lips smiling but eyes dark. "Dad, if you refuse to cooperate, we'd have to file for guardianship. It's the law." I stared at her until she shifted. "Did you just say, if I don't cooperate, you'll file for guardianship, correct?" She hesitated. Their lawyer looked at Derek. Yes, in necessary cases," she said. I turned to the young lawyer. "And you said my cognitive abilities might decline?" He swallowed. "Well, statistically, after losing a spouse," I reached out and rotated my phone toward them. The red light blinked strong. I whispered, "This phone is recording. In my own house, perfectly legal. And if needed, I'll send this to my attorney and to the Fulton County District Attorney." Half the color drained from Derek's face. Madison's fingers tightened around her purse. Their lawyer straightened like a stick being yanked upright. I kept going, my voice steady. "I have a medical evaluation confirming I'm fully competent, and I have my own lawyer. If any of you file for guardianship, this," I tapped the phone, "becomes evidence of elder abuse." Their lawyer blinked rapidly, voice suddenly small. "Mr. Coleman, I believe we've had a misunderstanding." "No," I said. "You were very clear. Clear enough that this phone remembers every word." Silence fell. Only the hum of the refrigerator filled the room, and the faint whisper of wind through the doorframe like Gloria standing there with crossed arms saying, "I warned you." Finally, Derek cleared his throat. "Dad, maybe this conversation got a little heated. We'll go home and think." "Think hard," I replied, "because next time I won't just record." Madison clenched her jaw but stayed quiet. Their lawyer bowed his head like someone tiptoeing away from a live bomb. They left, their footsteps fading down the hall. When the door closed, the house felt larger, or perhaps my chest felt lighter. I locked the door, the click of the deadbolt sounding like the end of an era. I leaned against the kitchen wall, chest rising and falling not from fear, but from something I hadn't felt since Gloria passed: strength. That night a thin mist fell over the neighborhood, the porch light spreading a soft yellow over the living room. I settled into my armchair, the one where Gloria used to tuck a blanket over my legs. My phone lit up with a familiar name: Aaliyah, 19 years old. The one grandchild who visited without asking for anything. Not because she was perfect, but because she was still young enough to see me as her grandfather, not a bank account. I exhaled and answered. Her voice came through, bright, youthful, but slightly hoarse from studying. "Grandpa, you're calling at this hour. I got worried." I meant to start gently, but remembering how long she'd been tied to false gratitude, I asked the question straight. "Aaliyah, did you receive the $500 I sent every month these past 2 years?" Silence. Then a sharp inhale. "Grandpa, what? I thought Mom and Dad sent that. They kept saying they were sacrificing everything for me. I felt guilty all the time." I closed my eyes. The sentence hit me like a fist to the chest. It took me a few seconds to speak. "No, sweetheart. Every repair bill, every dental surgery, every shortfall in your summer tuition, all of it came from me. Every document has my name on it. Your parents didn't spend a single dollar." Aaliyah went quiet. I heard her breath crack. Then a soft, breaking sob. I thanked the wrong people. Over and over. I thought they gave up everything for me. God, I feel so stupid." "No," I said quickly. "You're not stupid. Adults sometimes use the word gratitude as a leash. They make young people believe they're in debt, so you'll behave, so you'll comply." Her voice trembled. "So, they taught me to feel grateful for things they never did?" I leaned back, looking at the ceiling, where Gloria and I once taped Christmas ornaments we never took down. "Yes, Aaliyah, and I'm sorry I let it go on for 2 years." She exhaled hard, like shaking something off her shoulders. Then she asked, "Why are you telling me this today?" So I told her everything. Derek and Madison bringing a lawyer to pressure me. Their threats of guardianship, the recording on the kitchen table, and the little house in Spain, the freedom Gloria had quietly built for me. Silence again, long enough that I almost checked if the call dropped. Then Aaliyah spoke, her voice no longer trembling, sharp, clear, and unexpectedly grown. "Grandpa, they didn't just lie to you, they lied to me about what family means. They taught me to thank the wrong people, then use that to manipulate me. That's disgusting." I heard her inhale sharply. "I'm coming to see you this weekend, not to take sides. I just want to hear the story from you directly. I want to understand the truth, for myself." My eyes stung, not from sadness, from recognition, because in that moment I heard Gloria in her voice, honesty wrapped in warmth, compassion wrapped in courage. "Good," I said. "I want to see you. I want to tell you everything Gloria and I hid to protect you." "Grandpa," she said, voice small but steady in a way only a 19-year-old can manage, "I don't want anyone else telling me what to believe anymore. I want to decide who my family really is." I nodded in the darkness. And for the first time I understood something. Gloria didn't just save me from being drained by my own children. She was pulling the next generation, Aaliyah's generation, out of the poisonous cycle of parents give, children owe that, So many black families get trapped in for life. When the call ended, the house fell quiet again. I set the phone down beside my tea and looked through the kitchen window into the garden. Gloria had tended leaf by leaf. The lavender swayed gently in the night breeze as if nodding in agreement. I understood more clearly than ever. If I had to choose who truly deserved to inherit this house, it wasn't Derek. It wasn't Madison. It was Aaliyah, the only one who didn't see me as a remaining asset, but simply as her grandfather. And in my mind, for the first time, a different future flickered a different legacy, something Gloria had no doubt foreseen long before I did. At exactly 7 on Monday morning, when the sun hadn't yet climbed over the rows of luxury homes in Derek's neighborhood, I stood on the curb with my arms crossed, watching a large moving truck turn onto the stone-paved street. The low hum of the engine, the soft grind of its wheels, everything blended into a kind of overture for the next step. Gloria had left inside the red folder. I wasn't shaking. I wasn't angry. I was calm, the way a man feels when he's finally clearing out an old room to reclaim space for himself. The truck door swung open and 3 movers in blue uniforms stepped down. The team leader checked his clipboard and asked, "Mr. Ira Coleman, we're here to deliver the items you requested." "That's me." Then they began lowering the sealed boxes. Bold black letters were printed neatly on every one. Personal belongings of Derek Coleman, returned from the home of his father, Ira Coleman. I had asked the moving company to write that exact sentence. Not to humiliate my son, but to remind him that for 20 years he had treated my home like a public storage unit, his high school football trophies, his college team jacket that he once made Gloria photograph, the wedding keepsake boxes he and Madison left for a few weeks that somehow stretched into 2 decades, piles of their daughter's old toys, broken gadgets, outdated handbags, all of it crammed into my garage and storage rooms like monuments to a generation that assumes parents are an endless safety net. I said nothing as the boxes were unloaded. I just stood there, a silent shape letting the scene speak for itself. The neighborhood began to wake. Doors opened. Curtains shifted. Morning walkers slowed their pace. An elderly woman walking her dog tilted her head to read the labels. Someone even lifted a phone to record because rich people arguing was too juicy to ignore. I didn't care. Sometimes the only way to shatter a false narrative is to let the truth be seen. A mover knocked on my son's door. "Sir, we have a delivery for you. Need your signature." I watched from a distance as Derek opened the door, his face draining pale, then flushing red. Madison appeared behind him, hair uncombed, wearing an expensive beige sleep set, but her expression twisted with shock. They froze when they noticed the neighbors watching. Derek waved the movers away. "You've got the wrong house. That isn't mine." The mover checked the clipboard. "It's your name. And it was shipped from Mr. Ira Coleman. He's right over there." Derek turned and locked eyes with me. His expression asked, "What the hell are you doing?" I didn't look away. I walked closer, hands in my pockets, voice calm. "You love managing assets so much, right? Then start with your own." Derek's face darkened, his mouth tensing as if he were holding back a yell. "Dad, are you trying to embarrass me in front of the whole neighborhood?" "No," I said. "I'm returning your belongings. If you feel embarrassed, maybe it's because you got used to using my house as your free storage unit." A ripple of whispers moved through the neighbors. Madison clenched her sleeve to hide her panic. She tried to salvage her pride. "You can't do this. You're humiliating us, you." I lifted my hand for silence. If you don't want people looking at you, live in a way that gives them nothing to stare at. Derek glared. But the HOA rules in that neighborhood were strict, no public disturbances. He lowered his voice and hissed, "You're attacking us," acting like you're the victim. I stepped closer, voice low but sharp. Victims don't hire moving trucks to return boxes, Derek. Victims hide. And I'm not hiding. I'm cleaning up my life. The movers kept unloading box after box. Derek hesitated but finally signed, pressured by the eyes around him. His hand trembled slightly, though he tried to hide it. I walked away before they could say another word. I didn't need to win with arguments. My actions that morning were enough. Back home, I made a cup of mint tea and sat in the backyard. The afternoon sun filtered through Gloria's garden trellis, throwing soft patches of light across the ground like memories stitched together. I heard birds instead of ringing phones. No one barged in. No veiled threats. No suffocating tension. I set my cup down and opened the red folder again. The scent of old paper, mixed with lavender, drifted out, as if Gloria were sitting right beside me. Between the stacks of documents, I pulled out a slim envelope in Gloria's handwriting. The final landmine. Inside were documents for a family preservation trust, something Gloria had set up years before without ever hinting at it. On the first page she'd written, "This decides who is worthy of carrying our name forward." I read it, and a weight eased off my chest. Not because it gave me power, but because Gloria had prepared everything so thoroughly that all I had to do was take each step she'd already mapped out. A light breeze rustled the lavender. I closed my eyes and let the warmth of the late afternoon settle over me. I wasn't getting revenge. I was reclaiming the life Gloria had prepared for me piece by piece. Aaliyah arrived on a humid, heavy afternoon, heat rising off the pavement like a thin mist. She rolled her suitcase to the porch, her hair tied up, her face tight from worry. I didn't even make it to the doorway before a car screeched to a stop behind her. Derek and Madison jumped out of their expensive SUV like officers confronting a fleeing suspect. "Dad, we need to talk one last time," Derek barked. "What you did on Monday, you humiliated us." Madison crossed her arms, glaring at Aaliyah as if she were an unwelcome witness. "You can't just do things like that," she said, voice trembling with anger and fear. I looked at the three of them, then opened the door. "Come in. Today we talk, but we talk honestly." Aaliyah followed me inside. Derek and Madison entered cautiously, like people no longer sure they owned the room. I led them to the dining table, the one Gloria bought with money from her first year of tutoring. She used to say, "Anyone who sits here has to tell the truth." I placed a stack of fresh documents on the table. "Before any of you speak," I said, "read this." Derek glanced down. Madison leaned forward. Aaliyah held her breath. On the first page, in bold letters, "Transfer of Atlanta property into the Coleman Family Preservation Trust." Madison squinted. "A preservation trust? Gloria created it 6 months before she passed," I said. "With attorneys, with the county, backed by her full ownership of the house." Derek grabbed the papers and flipped through them, faster and faster, each page draining the color from his face. "This means the house can't be sold." "Correct. It can't be sold, can't be mortgaged, can't be renovated to maximize value, can't be transferred for cash. In short, it's not an ATM." Madison planted her hands on the table. "And what about us? We get nothing?" Aaliyah's eyes widened as she read the next line. Sole future beneficiary, Aaliyah Coleman, upon reaching age 25. The room went silent. Derek shoved his chair back so hard it scraped the floor. "Dad, you've lost your divs. Mind. How could you steal my inheritance? I grew up in this house. I deserve it." I looked at him, not angry, not afraid, just tired. "You didn't have anything stolen. This is mine and Gloria's property. She chose to protect it from being turned into a profit machine, and I'm honoring that," Madison sputtered. "But you can't trust Aaliyah with something like this." "She's just a kid." Aaliyah lifted her chin, eyes shimmering but steady. "Are you scared I'll manage the house, or scared I'll know the truth?" "Shut up," Derek snapped. "No," I said, louder. "She will speak. Because she's the only one here who's never used the word grateful as a leash." Madison grabbed Derek's arm, trying to sound composed. "You think this is smart? We can sue. We can prove you weren't in a stable state of mind when you did this." I opened my file drawer and placed my mental capacity evaluation on the table. "I'm fully competent, certified, and Marcus is ready for any lawsuit you try to file." Madison's lips trembled. "So, we get nothing? After all we've sacrificed to care for you?" I looked her directly in the eye. "Sacrificed? You never even asked if I needed care. The only thing you've cared about is the price of this house." Aaliyah gently placed her hand on my arm. I continued, calm but sharp. "There's something else. For 6 years after the mortgage was paid off, Gloria quietly invested the money you thought was monthly mortgage payments. She put it into a fund, and now there's enough for Aaliyah to maintain this house for the rest of her life, without selling it." Aaliyah turned to me, voice trembling. "She did all of that for me." I put my hand over hers. "Not for you, for kindness." Gloria believed in kindness. Then I read the trust clause. Anyone who pressures, manipulates, or attempts to persuade the beneficiary to sell the house will be barred from all family events on this property. Derek's expression collapsed. Madison's mouth opened, but no words came out. I spoke the final truth like placing a stone into the foundation. "You thought inheritance was guaranteed, but inheritance is character carried forward. And character isn't something everyone has." Aaliyah bit her lip to keep from crying. Derek and Madison stood, speechless, then walked out without another word. When the door shut behind them, the house felt quiet again, quiet like Gloria's breath, quiet like justice finally settling into place, quiet like a home free from false entitlement. After finalizing the trust, the house regained a peace I thought I'd lost forever, but within hours, the phone started buzzing again, messages, guilt trips, thinly veiled threats. I blocked Derek, but he used new numbers. Madison sent a long email accusing me of destroying the family. Renee wrote that she needed time. I sat on the porch where Gloria used to bring me tea and realized I had protected the house for the next generation, but I was still trapped in the storm of people who didn't want me peaceful. Aaliyah sat beside me, shoes dusty from travel. "Grandpa, tell me everything about the house in Valencia. I want to know what Gloria did for you." So I told her. Everything, Carmen. The deportation case, the secret trips to Spain, 8 years of preparation, the spare keys, the legal letters, the taxes paid, the photos Gloria took in front of the little white casita by the Mediterranean. Aaliyah wrapped her arms around her knees, listening as if the story might slip away if she blinked. When I finished, she exhaled slowly. "Grandpa, if you go, I want to go with you. I don't want to grow up living off someone else's money and feeling grateful to the wrong people. I want to understand the world in a different way. I studied her face. She was smart, strong, but 19. And your college? I asked. Your future? She smiled softly. I checked last night. My school has European exchange programs. I can transfer or take a gap year. I'm young. I can learn anywhere. But I only have one grandpa. My chest tightened. Gloria once said, "Family matters when it extends your freedom, not when it becomes your chain." Just then, Renee called. Her voice shook. "Dad, Aaliyah said you're leaving the country? Are you really going to abandon us?" I closed my eyes. Maybe I really had let Renee be overshadowed by Derek for too long. I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm choosing not to be trapped in a life I didn't choose. She was silent for a long time, then whispered honest and raw, "I'm sorry. I let Derek lead us for too long. I didn't see he was using you. Please, just give me time." I told her I had time, and that I loved her. But I also told her that I needed to leave for a while to protect the peace Gloria wanted for me. An hour later, Derek called. No pretending, no sweet talk. "So you're running away, afraid to face us?" For the first time, he couldn't shake me. "You chose money," I said. "I choose peace." I hung up before he could respond. 3 days later, Aaliyah and I stood in the Atlanta airport. I carried one small suitcase, 2 changes of clothes, a picture of Gloria, and the red folder. Aaliyah carried a backpack and a journal. We walked like 2 people stepping into a new chapter of a story Gloria had authored from the start. The transatlantic flight was the longest of my life. The hum of the engine, the dim cabin lights, the weight of Aaliyah sleeping on my shoulder, all of it felt strangely peaceful. When we landed in Valencia, I smelled the sea the moment the doors opened. Carmen stood holding a sign that read, "Familia Coleman," handwritten. When she saw me, she dropped the sign and hugged me as if I were family returning after a decade. Aaliyah whispered, "She's like real family." "She is," I said. Carmen drove us to the casita. When the door opened, I froze. A small white house with blue shutters, 3 steps of red tile. Not fancy, not modern, but warm in the way only a true home can be. Inside, the dining cloth Gloria once picked out. A little shelf of old Bibles, a lavender candle, a photo of Gloria and Carmen, a freshly made bed waiting for someone who had been gone too long. Aaliyah set down her suitcase and walked onto the balcony overlooking the sea. The wind lifted her hair. She inhaled deeply. "Grandpa, I think this is where you're supposed to teach me what legacy really means." I stood behind her, watching waves crash against the stones. And for the first time since Gloria died, I felt that I wasn't running from anything at all. I am walking toward the one place I am allowed to live not as an asset, but as a human being. The first mornings in Valencia felt very different from Atlanta. No trucks, no grumbling neighbors, no calls demanding something from me, only sparrows chattering on the roof tiles, wind slipping through the blue shutters, and the smell of dark roast coffee mixing with the scent of the sea. Aaliyah adapted faster than I expected. Every morning, she opened a thick notebook and diligently repeated basic phrases in Spanish. Carmen usually stopped by around 8, carrying bags of tomatoes, onions, and fresh bread from the market. They would walk together, talking in a jumble of English, Spanish, and hand gestures, yet somehow understanding each other perfectly. I watched those 2 women, one old, one young, and saw Gloria in their smiles. Gloria always believed that when women stand beside each other, they create things men could never imagine. She was right. As for me, I sank into the slow rhythm of life in a way that surprised me. Each morning I made myself a black coffee and sat on the balcony facing the sea, as if I were sitting in front of a wide-open mirror of time. I walked along the sand, talking with local old men in the Valencia dialect, listening to them share about their grandchildren, their years of fishing, and the houses passed down through 3 generations. Their stories made me realize real family is not the place that births you, but the place that respects you. One afternoon, Carmen sat next to me in the backyard and told me something Gloria had never mentioned. Gloria didn't just save my family, she said quietly. She also paid my daughter's first-year college tuition in Madrid. She said only knowledge can give poor women their freedom back. I turned to her, as shocked as if I were seeing Gloria do something incredible for the first time. She never told me that. Because she didn't do it to brag, Carmen replied. She did it because she believed it was right. Aaliyah was nearby and caught half the story. Her eyes widened with admiration. After that day, she changed noticeably. No longer just the 19-year-old college student thinking about assignments and friends. She grew quieter, more thoughtful. She began joining community meetings in Valencia, places where immigrant families from Morocco, Nigeria, Colombia, Honduras, and more gathered. Every evening she came home and told me about their struggles, applying for residency papers, work permits, health insurance. One night, Aaliyah stopped mid-story and said to me with a steady voice, "Grandpa, I think I want to study immigration law, not in the States, in Europe. I want to help people like Carmen once was." I stayed quiet for a few seconds, feeling both surprised and deeply moved. "Are you sure? You know you'll have to sacrifice a lot." Aaliyah nodded. "I don't want to live off other people's money. I want to build something that's truly free, like Gloria did." That night, as the sea turned a deep blue and the Mediterranean wind wrapped itself around the casita's walls, I sat down at the computer and opened an email from a university in Madrid. It was part of Gloria's written plan. She hadn't just created a preservation trust for the house. She'd also set up a separate fund for the next generation that wants to step out of the shade. That fund was enough for Aaliyah to go to college, completely independent from her parents. I helped Aaliyah prepare her transfer application. Carmen called her daughter in Madrid and asked her to introduce a professor who could advise Aaliyah academically. Aaliyah hugged me from behind while I was typing the application email. "Grandpa, I know why Gloria brought us here now," I asked. "For peace?" "More than that," she whispered. "She brought you here to teach you that legacy isn't something to fight over. It's something you pass on to the right person." We spent many nights on the casita's rooftop, watching the sea glitter like silver scales under the moonlight. I told my granddaughter stories I had never dared share with anyone. How the bank refused to loan to us just because we were black. How I stood in the sun for 3 hours waiting to see a manager only to be rejected in seconds. How Gloria held my hand and said, "Ira, we are going to buy a house with our own hands. Nobody gets to tell us no." Aaliyah listened without crying, just sat there in a long silence before saying, "Grandpa, I get it now. We didn't leave America to run away from family. We left to step out of a system that thinks our grandparents should be grateful for things they never actually received." I looked at my granddaughter, the strength of youth in her eyes mixed with the calm of someone who has seen unfairness. And for the first time in years, the future didn't feel foggy anymore. Not my future, I don't need more than mornings with waves and the smell of coffee. It's Alia's future that matters now. She's the one carrying Gloria's legacy forward, in a way Gloria would be proud of. The legacy is no longer trapped inside the walls of the house in Atlanta. It's standing by the sea, hair flying in the wind, law books in hand, eyes looking ahead. And I know Gloria was right. Sometimes, to change the whole course of a bloodline, you just have to walk away from the place you used to call home. Renee called me one windy Mediterranean afternoon, when the curtains in the casita were whipping around as if trying to pull me back to Atlanta. Her face appeared on the screen exhausted, sleep-deprived, but there was something I noticed immediately. Her eyes were different. No more dodging, no more fear of Derek. No more torn expression of someone stuck between defending and opposing, the way she had been for years. "Dad," Renee began, I'm in therapy, twice a week. I went still. Renee used to be the strongest child in my house. Turns out, being strong too long breaks you, she went on, voice trembling. I'm starting to realize. All these years I stood in the middle. I didn't choose what was right or wrong. I just chose not to upset anyone. And by doing that, I abandoned you. I abandoned Aaliyah. I didn't respond right away. I let her speak a privilege Derek never really gave anyone in that family. And Renee hesitated, then exhaled hard, like someone finally jumping into cold water. I realized I benefited from the money you sent, Aaliyah. I knew it was your money. But I let my daughter believe her parents sacrificed everything. I lied to her. I lied to myself. I turned my chair toward the window, where the late afternoon light spread across the floor like a golden rug. "Keep talking," I said gently. Renee took a breath. "Derek and Madison. They're in big trouble. Their credit card debt is so high the bank started sending warning letters. Their house is being reviewed for foreclosure after missing 3 payments. The neighbors are whispering about the moving truck. They say you humiliated them." I closed my eyes. I didn't feel triumphant. But I didn't hurt the way I used to either. "Dad," Renee choked up, "I'm not calling to ask you to help them. I just want you to know I'm trying to change." I nodded slowly, even though she couldn't see it. "Renee, anyone who builds their life on someone else's money will eventually have to learn how to stand up on their own. I'm not abandoning anyone, but I'm not rescuing them anymore. I'm protecting the only thing I have left, my self-respect." On the screen, Renee bowed her head, a small gesture but full of honesty. "Dad," she continued, almost whispering, "I want to come visit you and Aaliyah. Not to convince you to come back, not to drag Aaliyah home. Just to see you as my father, not as a bank." I swallowed, then set my boundaries right away. "You can only come if you respect my lines. No talk about money. No trying to bring Aaliyah back. No phrases like, 'You're tearing the family apart.' If you agree to that, then come." Renee nodded firmly. "I agree." Her flight landed in Valencia on a sun-soaked day, the sky so blue even sadness couldn't stick to it. Aaliyah hugged her aunt for a long time in the arrivals hall. They had grown distant, but the love was still there. When Renee stepped into the casita, she paused at the doorway, looked around and whispered, "Now I understand why Gloria chose this place." She walked slowly, touching the hand-embroidered tablecloth, studying the photo of Gloria by the window, running her fingers over the ceramic mug Carmen had given us. On her face, I saw a kind of confusion I'd never seen before, the confusion of realizing her mother had lived much more deeply than her children ever knew. Aaliyah made her coffee. The three of us sat on the balcony, listening to waves hitting the rocks below. In Atlanta, Renee began, we've been fighting over things that never mattered. I let other people define what success is. I chased that perfect suburban rich life and forgot where our family came from. I forgot who my father is. I looked at my daughter. She no longer had that fearful look she used to wear whenever she thought Derek might yell at her. She looked more like the woman Gloria once trusted, kind, but buried under busyness and toxic voices. That afternoon, I walked with Renee down to the shore. The waves were gentle, the sun warm, the sea breeze salty on our skin. Renee stood there for a moment, then broke down. "Dad," she sobbed, "I treated you like you were going to live forever. So I allowed myself to be selfish. I forgot you have fears too, that you need love too. I'm sorry." I put my hand on her shoulder. I didn't say, "I forgive you." Forgiveness isn't a sentence. It's time and action. But I did say, "Renee, you have a chance to make it right. I don't need promises or speeches. I just need you to live honestly with yourself and stop letting anyone else define your worth." She lifted her head, eyes red but bright. "Dad, I'll try. I promise." We stood there, 3 generations of a black family that had been through too much. A father once dismissed for the color of his skin, a mother now gone who had fought with kindness, a granddaughter stepping into justice on her own 2 feet, and a daughter finally prying herself out of invisible chains. The wind picked up, the waves grew louder, but the sky stayed clear, clear enough that I believed this family still had a chance to rewrite its own story. The last days of summer in Valencia carried a very special light. Not harsh, not weak, but a warm gold like the final rays of a life that has weathered many storms. I sat on the casita's rooftop, watching Aaliyah bent over her laptop finishing enrollment for Madrid, while Renee helped Carmen hang laundry in the back. Their laughter rose with the wind, soft and light, the kind of sound that never got to exist back in Atlanta. I realized a family doesn't always need to go back to its old shape. Sometimes it has to be torn apart, painfully, then pieced back together with the people who truly want to stay. That night, the 3 of us sat around the table Gloria once chose. I set her photo in the middle like she was still keeping the rhythm of the conversation. Renee shared her new plans, cutting up her credit cards, moving into a small apartment, returning to the job she once quit because she listened to Derek. "From now on, I'll pay my own way," she said. "No one gets to use the word sacrifice to shake me down for money anymore." I looked at my daughter and saw Gloria in both her gentleness and her resolve. Aaliyah spoke excitedly about her law program, the classes, the professors, her dream of interning at an organization that helps migrants in Europe. "Grandpa," she said, "I want to be the kind of lawyer who doesn't just win cases, but changes someone's life, like Gloria did." Listening to them, a quiet pride rose up in me. One day, after I'm gone, maybe people will mention Gloria, mention Aaliyah, maybe even mention me not through a story of a house being fought over, but through the story of a family that stepped out of the dark and found its own light. One morning, I took Renee and Aaliyah down to the water. The waves were steady and soft. Seagulls circled, calling softly. We sat on the old stone steps where Gloria once stood for photos when the casita was brand new. I told them, "I don't know how many years I have left, but I know this. I'm not afraid anymore. Not afraid of being used, not afraid of being forgotten, not afraid of leaving too little behind because I've left the right things." Aaliyah placed her hand on mine. You're leaving us freedom. That's enough for me to build a whole life. Renee leaned in and almost whispered to the wind, I promise I won't let the old mistakes come back. I watched the sea, listening to the waves hitting the rocks like the last pages of a book being folded closed. Gloria didn't bring me here to hide. She brought me here to live lighter, freer, as the man she always believed I could be. And finally, I have become that man. That night, I sat alone on the rooftop. The lights from the houses around the bay stretched across the water like a golden ribbon. I opened the notebook Gloria left in the drawer, the one I'd never dared read to the last page. On that final page, there was only one handwritten sentence. Ira, live the rest of your life as if you have been set free because you truly have. I closed the notebook, breathed in the salty air, and smiled. My new life has no demands, no pressure to be endlessly strong, no house being put up for sale behind my back. Just the sea, the quiet, loved ones healing, and Gloria's legacy living in every breath. And that is enough. Before I end this story, I want to say something I rarely say out loud. Thank you. Thank you for sitting with me and listening to the journey of an old black man who thought his own family had thrown him away. If you're still here at this point and you've ever felt dismissed, misunderstood, or you're trying to reclaim your own worth, let me know where you're listening from in the comments. It will help me know I didn't tell this story alone. And if you'd like to keep walking with me, leave a message, a like, or subscribe, not for me, but so stories like this can reach more people. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for your time. Thank you for listening.